Great. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our CTE month webinars. Today, we're going to be discussing how we can better serve students with disabilities. And today I have a couple of guests joining me. One is Katie Grand. She's a DRS transition specialist with the state of South Dakota. And then I have Justice St. Sauver. He's an academic support coordinator at Lake Area Technical College. And they're going to join us today and talk to us about how they serve students with disabilities and how we can better do that as well in each of our capacities. So I'm first going to have these two introduce themselves. Katie, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name is Katie Grand. I work with vocational rehabilitation, which is part of Department of Human Services. Our job within the voc rehab world is to provide services and supports to individuals with disabilities to help them succeed in the employment field. We work very closely with all the private or public and private schools in South Dakota and attend IEP meetings, 504 meetings, and meet with students at secondary schools to potentially provide services to, again, assist them with that transition from high school into the adult world, whether they're going on to post-secondary at a vocational college or a four-year university, or if they're just going to be focusing on employment. We do all of our services are individualized to meet the services and the needs of the people that we serve.
Thank you, Katie. Justice, could you please introduce yourself and give us a little bit of an idea of what you do?
So I've always wanted to do this. So Justice St. Sauver coming to you live from Watertown, South Dakota. A little bit of radio zing with that here a little bit. So I'm an academic support coordinator at Lake Area Tech here in Watertown. With that, my primary role is disability services. So I help students with that transition who are looking into technical college and how I can best meet their needs while they're with us for their short 2 years. So a little bit of background for me that I think is really crucial with my perspective on working with students with disabilities is I spent 5 years as a high school special education teacher. I primarily work with students who struggled with social, emotional, mental health. So I worked a lot with students who really had a lot of ability, but they maybe lacked a lot of confidence. And I think moving into this position, I'm seeing a lot of that. And it's interesting to take that next step and what we need to do and how do we best offer support, because it is constantly changing. I think you are still muted there.
Thank you, Justice. Sorry, I tried to mute to not interrupt you and then I screwed it up anyway. But thank you both for your introductions and especially your backgrounds. I think that gives us all a lot of confidence in the information that you have to share with us today. So I'm just going to kick this off with a question. Some are more applicable to Justice, some are more applicable to Katie, but if you have information that you'd like to share either way, just please jump in. This isn't very formal. It's just an informal conversation, just trying to help everybody out there learn as much as they can with the time that we have today. So from both of you in the worlds that you live in, seeing what you see and the students and the young people that come to you, the biggest question I think I have probably to help our audience is what professional development would you suggest for CTE teachers when it comes to working with children with disabilities? They get a lot of CTE professional development, but is there anything like outside of that world that you could recommend that would really help give these students a leg up?
I can kind of kick this one off if that's okay. I don't have a lot to say or to maybe offer because my answer is going to be very broad, but also very specific. When it comes to professional development out there, there's a lot of opportunities. There's websites, there's webinars as we're doing here today. There's certain instances where you're able to get together with other professionals in the field and kind of dive into each other's thoughts, perspectives. But in my experience, a lot of what has shaped my foundation for how I do things is just ACEs training, that adverse childhood experiences, because that is something that it's a relatively new concept in retrospect to what we're working with and what we're seeing. And not only does it pertain to students who have disabilities, but it also pertains to just students in general. And that's kind of a world that I'm living in right now, is everyone's so focused on helping and supporting students with disabilities, but we're seeing that rise and uptick on just needing to support all students and just being that inclusive environment. So any sort of ACEs training that you can get yourself into, whether it's webinars, whether it's having a speaker come to your school, it's very beneficial. It helps all staff. It's good for staff who've been in the field for 20 years, and it's amazing for staff who maybe are just coming out of their education. Another thing, professional development opportunity would just be experiences and working with community resources. I will use Voc Rehab as a prime example. As a special education teacher, when I was at the high school, we always knew about Voc Rehab. And we always knew it was a community resource, and we'd always put it in the IEP for the student to connect with Voc Rehab. And it was kind of those hoops that we would kind of jump through to say we've covered the transition, but we need to make it meaningful transition. That's how a student's going to find the most success, if you can make as many ties and make that transition as meaningful as possible. Voc Rehab helps do that. They're kind of that bridge between two gaps. I was always under the impression they just help with with job support, and little did I know until I came to Lake Erie, I just realized that, you know, Voc Rehab has a lot more to offer to the table, especially students who want to take that next step, that next opportunity into a technical college, community college, secondary education, just in general. And Voc Rehab is, I would say, my primary backbone when it comes to student support. The more I can get students connected to them, their counselors, the more I can get their counselors on campus, I find the more likely students are to have some success.
Thanks for the shout out, Justice. I appreciate that.
You bet. Voc Rehab.
Yeah, and you know, I'm outside of the education trainings and different things like that, but some of the trainings that that we find beneficial, especially if you're helping the students wanting to learn more about how students with disabilities can be successful on jobs and different things like that. Every year, typically in October, Voc Rehab holds a fall conference. And this conference is, the key audience is professionals working with people with disabilities that are pursuing employment. This can be, we've had teachers come, we have employment specialists come, and we're always looking at ways to develop and learn more about what is the best way to support a person with a disability, depending on what their disability is. Because when you start working with folks with disabilities, Justice kind of mentioned this, that there's a wide range of disabilities that we're looking at. And depending on what that disability is, their needs are going to be different. So VR Fall Conference does a lot with that. TSLP is an agency that Department of Education and Department of Human Services funds together. And every summer they hold a summer institute. And this is, the primary audience is special education teachers, high school special education teachers, and how they can provide transition supports to students with disabilities and getting them connected to the adult service agencies that can help those students once they're done with their educational credits at the high school. That includes Voc Rehab, community support providers, independent living centers, a wide range. There's so many adult service agencies available to students with disabilities. And if you attend that summer institute, typically held in June or July, that is a lot of great information that you can learn from. Whether you're special ed, CTE, there's a lot of information there. Some events that we hold for students in particular, but teachers are more than welcome to attend as well to learn, is Catch the College Wave. This is a one-day event held at different post-secondary places around the state, where students can learn, you know, what is available to them at that technical college, four-year university level. the differences between accommodations versus modifications, getting hooked up with Justice and his counterparts at all of the different post-secondary institutes. So that's been and learning about assistive technology devices that might be helpful to them. So that's a great thing. The Catch the College Waves are taking place now in the spring. And then this past fall, there was Let's Talk Work events. So these are for students that aren't necessarily going on to post-secondary education, but they really want to focus on employment and learn about what sort of services and supports are available to them at the employment So that's another great event that teachers also come to and learn a lot more about the services and supports that would be available to their students. And those were held in the fall. I believe next year they're going to be switching those. So Catch the College Wave will be more in the fall months. And then the Let's Talk Work events are going to be held in the spring. So those are all hosted by TSLP, the Transition Service Liaison Project. And their website is tslp.org if you want to learn more information about that.
Thank you, both of you. And I will add that as a long-term attendee and presenter at the Let's Talk Work events, they're just spectacular. They're really fun for the kids. I always have a good time. And I actually love it when I see, you know, teachers outside of our normal, you know, audience, and other parents also attend these events. I think they learn just as much as the students do. So that kind of leads me into my next question. This one's more for Justice, I guess, but if a family is really encouraging their student that has some sort of disability to pursue education beyond high school, and they're looking at that community college setting, what services are available on your campus that will make students and parents feel more comfortable with that transition?
You bet. Kind of the reel back here a little bit. That process and that conversation, I really hope starts happening as early as a freshman, sophomore year of high school, and even earlier than that, because it really is a transition. I think one thing that's really misunderstood is the transition just kind of starts happening their senior year, and then they graduate and then they transition out. Well, that transition needs to be happening years in advance because it's all about preparation. You want that student leaving their high school, exiting their 504 plan, their IEP, kind of firing all cylinders and having really big gains when it comes to their abilities. So you want to make sure that they are leaving with the tools that they need and the understanding of themselves and their own abilities in order for them to transition more successfully. So here at Lake Area specifically, I know that a lot of colleges here in the state are very similar with what they offer for accommodations. I have been in a transition myself. So I started in this position back in July. So I'm taking a lot of what has already been implemented, and I'm putting a little bit of my personal spin on it. So we offer daily instruction accommodations, and then we also offer testing accommodations. So we kind of split those two offerings just to help alleviate with the instructors a little bit and offer a little bit more guidance. So for those daily instruction accommodations, we do offer assistive technology. I'll do a shout out to Voc Rehab again. I will say the students that I have connected with Voc Rehab really have access to assistive tech, and they really do a nice job with that. I think they're linked up with Dakota Link. Dakota Link really helps make sure that they have their assistive tech, it's up to date, it's taken care of, and they know how to use it. I know the reps that they send out and work with students, they spend an extensive amount of time training the student in how to use their assistive tech. So we also have audio books through our library. I'm kind of a branch off the library, so that really helps me out with offering assistance for students. We have translators or interpreters if we have any students that are hard of hearing or deaf. That is a service that we offer here. Preferential seating you'll see used a lot for students, especially students who are more prone to need to leave the classroom frequently. And then we just have other health services. Those are more geared towards students that maybe are coming with more medical disabilities rather than academic disabilities. As for exams, we do offer time and a half for students, so they're able to have that extended testing time. We offer reader for exam, whether it's through me or an AI. It just depends how the testing is conducted. And then we also offer separate setting and then any interpreters for exams. So our process, I try to make things very simple because you have to think of our audience and you just have to think about this general transition in itself. It's already stressful, it's confusing, there's a lot of unknowns. So my process just involves 3 steps. Students reach out to me, they apply. I kind of have an interview with them. That's where they're able to provide me with any documentation that they may have, whether it's a 504 plan, a medical evaluation, IEP, a medical referral, anything along those lines. And we kind of go through that with the student, and then we fill out an accommodation plan, and it kind of just looks like this. It's a very short piece of paper. Just this is what goes to the instructors. It gives the student's name, what accommodations that a student has been accepted for, and then it also has key factors and consideration portion. So if a student wants to disclose any specific information right out of the gate to that instructor, they can. Because we are working with a different set of laws with ADA, it's up to the student to disclose a lot of the information. And that's just part of that transition in itself. So my initiative this year has been actually going out to high schools, being a part of as many IEP meetings as I possibly can to try and alleviate that confusion of what happens to a 504 or an IEP when I'm done with high school. Does it automatically carry over to secondary ed if that's what I'm looking into? And there's just a lot of misconception, a lot of confusion with that. So I'm really trying to alleviate that and just help students and parents be advocates for themselves. So I know that's kind of a lot, and I'm sure there's probably some questions rolling in. And if there is, I definitely can dive into more specifics, but that's just our general process. And then just general accommodations that we offer. Now, those are our base offerings. There are specific circumstances because every student is different. No matter if I have 2 students who are maybe coming in who struggle with reading comprehension, I may go about the situation different, and I base that off of that student's past and their past accommodations that they may have already been accessing.
Thank you, Justice. Yes, if anybody has any follow-up questions, they'd like anything more specific, please throw those questions in the chat. We do have Jane monitoring that, so she can relate those questions to us. Katie, following up on that, just kind of piggybacking a little bit, Justice talked about, reaching back into their prior, their IEPs, their prior history, things like that. Is there things missing in the secondary setting where the students are now, as far as resources, gaps that you're seeing that would be helpful to help get them moved on to that next step?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just the lack of awareness of what services and supports are available to students with disabilities. Because that's one thing, as we're technically an adult service agency, but we serve a lot of students with disabilities, obviously. But one thing that we hear from a lot of our adults is, I wish I would have known about you in high school so that you could have been giving us the services and supports that I'm getting now in my 30s and 40s. I could have been getting in my 20s and maybe not have such a spotty work history, and have more opportunities for training and career development and different things like that. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just that lack of awareness. We try to get our names out, and what we can do to support people with disabilities. But we really need the help of everyone to do that. We have great working relationships with our special education teachers, but if we can develop a great working relationship with our CTE teachers, that would be great too, because there's I know you might be supporting them, or they might have to find a job that is associated with the CTE class that they're taking, and they might need accommodations on the job, similar to what Justice was talking about, that they might need at a post-secondary level. They might need accommodations at that job level. And if you're not familiar with the best way to work with the student to disclose that disability to an employer, then they're really missing out on a lot of job accommodations that could be helpful to them. But that's where Voc Rehab can come in, is we can come in and help that student through, instruction and self-advocacy, teaching them more about their disability and how it impacts them, so that when we do start that job search part of it, we make the decision, are you going to disclose to this employer or are you not? Because similar to what Justice said, where they have to follow the ADA, it's not the same as an IEP or a 504. Those students have to disclose that disability and ask for help. Otherwise, it's never going to become available to them. They'll just end up losing the job. Either they'll quit because they're not happy, or they'll be fired because they're not doing the job that they were hired to do. So that's where Voc Rehab can come in and really assist those students. We also do a lot of workplace readiness training with those students, where we can do, VR paid work experiences or provide supports for an employer paid work experience. Because, a lot of these students don't know where to start with getting jobs. So that's where we can come in and give them some additional support, as well as those employers the support, to give students with disabilities more of a chance that they might not have been willing to take a chance on before. And then the students can show how great of an employee they can be once they're given the proper supports. And then also, like Justice says, we provide a lot of services and supports to students that are going to vocational colleges or for universities. If students meet our financial need, we can look at tuition assistance. We help them with the assistive technology, like he mentioned. We also make sure that they get hooked up with Justice and his counterparts at all of these places, because a lot of times students don't know that that those supports are available, or they might be like, well, I didn't really utilize that much in high school. They didn't realize how much they used it in high school. So they want to try it on their own. And then if things start falling down, the VR counselor can really push to get into that disability service office so that they can get those services and supports that they may not have realized how much it supported them while they were in high school. A lot of what we can do too is career exploration. You guys are probably most familiar with South Dakota My Life. We have a platform called Pathful Explore that's pretty similar, where there's a variety of career assessments that we can take with the students, and then they can explore those careers by watching short videos, like frequently asked questions about different careers, a career overview video, learning about what sort of education and training is required of that type of career. So we kind of go through all of that with students. And again, based on their needs, their strengths, and their employment goals, we work with them to give them what they need to be successful.
Thank you, Katie. I'd like to, I point out, my office works with Katie's office and vice versa. And we have I work with TSLP. We have a lot of cross relationships where we share information with each other and our students that we serve. But I would like just your opinions, or if you could touch for a few minutes on how you feel SPED departments and school districts collaborating with the classroom teachers, like with the CTE teachers, working directly with them to making sure that the students are succeeding in the classroom, like how that changes their outcomes, if you have an opinion on that.
I don't mean to jump in front of you, Katie. I actually have a personal experience with this. It would have been my last year as a high school special education teacher. Obviously in Watertown, we had CT offerings through Northeast Technical High School. And it was a challenge for my students who struggled behaviorally to have that opportunity to go across the street and do a different building in order to take a CTE. There's a lot of misconception with are they ready for that type of independence? And I made a really big push, because these are students who really need that connection in order to fulfill and finish their general schooling that they're in, whether it's their math or science, their English or their history. So it was a really big drive to have that offering of the CT. Like, hey, we have an opportunity here to take a welding class, but first you need to pass your English. And it was something that a lot of these students used as drive in order to be successful. And they could piggyback off that and have an opportunity in a career field that they may have a lot of interest in. So CT is greatly important. Now, one concern that I have with CT is just the collaboration and having the understanding of the students who are coming into their building and how to best serve them. So one thing that I really tried to do a nice job with was just communicate with the CT instructors ahead of time about the students and just try to make sure that they had all the tips, tricks, and the tools available for them, because we have to remember a lot of these CTE instructors didn't necessarily go to school to be educators. They became masters in their field, in their trade, and now they want to have that opportunity to teach and pass that along. So it's really up to school districts. It's up to the teachers, the special education teachers, to help those CTE instructors with that, the educational management leadership side of things when it comes to assisting and helping students.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback on that, in my mind, there can never be too much communication, and there can't be too many questions. You know, we're in a world where there's no dumb questions. So if you don't know, ask, you know, the special education teacher. Because yeah, these hands-on classes, these real life experience classes that these students have the opportunity, we see that they do better in these types of classes versus the ones where they have to sit and read out of a book and do a lot of the paperwork part of it. But if they can get their hands dirty and really do hands-on tasks, it makes more sense to them, and there's a better chance of success in these types of classes because it makes sense to them versus having to read a chapter and then being tested over that chapter. Which I know that there's tests and different things in the CTE classes too, but it's just that hands-on experience that they thrive more in those types of classes. And you know, so yeah, keep that line of communication open. And if you're invited to the IEP meeting or the 504 meeting, if you can make it, great. There's a lot of great information that is shared about that student, about their strengths, about their needs, what they need to be successful. So if you can attend those meetings and be part of that discussion, the person that's going to benefit the most is the student, but also you, because you're going to learn a lot more sitting in that meeting, and hearing from a variety of different people about what is working, what's not working for that student. So then you can use that information for the best chance of success in your classroom for those students.
Thank you. Both of those were exactly what I was hoping for. Honestly, I got a little emotional listening to you talk about how important those connections are for those students. It's just they often get forgotten, and if the CTE teachers would you know, make that little extra effort to collaborate with the SPED teachers and those in charge of the students' IEPs and whatnot, I just can't imagine that their outcomes wouldn't be exponentially you know, more improved. So I appreciated both of those answers. So we're going to wrap up today. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We have about a minute left, but any ways that either of you can be resources for any of our audience today? At the end of the webinar here, I'm going to share your contact information, but if there's any ways that you can be a resource that you haven't already offered up, if you want to just take a few seconds or a minute to remind folks of what you can do, that would be fantastic.
Resources for me, when you display my contact information, I really am putting it out there that if anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, or wants to have an opportunity to touch base with me, have me come to their school, I'm all for traveling. I'm all for talking to special education departments, staff, all staff about just transition, supporting all students, and how to really develop meaningful plans for students to be successful and getting that buy-in and from the family and from their staff. So please reach out. Don't just leave today going, oh, that was insightful, that's good, and then show up to work the next day and kind of go through the motions. Please make an effort to take this with a grain of salt and really dive in and look at your own processes that you have set already in place, because there's always room for improvement. Education's consistently and constantly changing. So we always need to do whatever we can to stay ahead of that game, ahead of that ball.
And I am the statewide VR transition specialist. So I work with the voc rehab counselors that are housed around the state. Every public and tribal school in South Dakota has a VR counselor assigned to those schools. So you can reach out to me first, and then I will get you connected with the local voc rehab counselor, so that they can provide the services and supports. Also within our department, we have a business liaison where she works very closely with employers throughout the state of South Dakota to give them training about working with people with disabilities and how to support them, and follow all federal and state laws for hiring and employing a person with a disability. So if that's something of interest, I can get you connected with that person. Yeah, we're here and we're ready to support anybody that is in need of our services or want to learn more about our services. So please reach out, and if I'm not the right person, I will get you connected with the right person.
Yeah, and I will follow up on what both Justice and Katie added, and just to say that if you need any information, you can reach out to anybody at the Career and Technical Education office too. And we're very, very honest about saying if we don't know the answer, we work really hard to find someone who does have the answer. And I think both of our panelists today would agree that that's how they operate as well. So just feel free to contact anybody that you've come across today that you would like to reach out to for more information. I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to thank Justice and Katie again for all this wonderful information today. We couldn't do these webinars without professionals like you, so I really appreciate it. And as we log off, I will keep the recording going and I will share your contact information, so those joining us today or watching the recording at a later time can reach out to you if they need to. So thank you. Everybody have a great Thursday.
Thank
See you
you.
later. Thank you.